Right now, as you watch this, there's someone in your industry who's half as talented as you. They have half your IQ and they produce half the results. Yet they're making twice the money and getting promoted twice as fast. Why? Because you're paying a social tax. Your technical brilliance is being discounted by 30, 40, or 50% because you lack the delivery mechanism to make people believe in your contributions. You think the world is a meritocracy based on output. It's not. It's a meritocracy based on perceived value. So if you're tired of being the smartest person in the room who has the least amount of influence, this is for you. In this course, I'm going to show you how to stop being socially underleveraged and instead become undeniable. This course, not theory. It's based on real world execution and my 16 years of experience as a success coach and high-end professional etiquette consultant. I've spent a lot of time around people who are very smart, analysts, engineers, consultants, people who can solve problems in their sleep that would break a normal person's brain, and most of them share the same problem. They've spent 20 years building a Ferrari engine. That's their expertise, but they're trying to drive it with a makeshift steering wheel. The social side of success isn't about suddenly becoming a people person. It's about leverage. If you have an IQ of 160 but a 60 social IQ, your effective output is 60. But if we can get your social skills to a 120, then your 160 actually starts to work for you. I'm here to give you the operating system for executive presence. No fluff and no just be yourself nonsense. Just clear, proven step-by-step frameworks. We're starting with the architecture of presence. Most people think executive presence is something you're born with. Like you just wake up one day and you're a natural leader. It's not. It's a set of signals. In the analytical world, you're taught to focus on the data, but in the leadership world, people don't buy the data first. They buy the conviction behind the data. What I'm saying is that to have presence, you have to move from being the solution provider to being the decision maker. The solution provider gives, let's say, 400 pages of variables, where the leader uses the SCQA framework: situation, complication, question, and answer. When you speak in SCQA, you aren't just giving information, you're providing certainty, and certainty is the most valuable commodity in any high-stakes environment. Think about a project update. The underleveraged person says, well, the integration is slow because the documentation was bad and Bob's on vacation, so we might miss the deadline. You sound like a victim of your own calendar. But the executive says, we're now in the final sprint for a launch. That's the situation. The external API updated without notice, halting our data flow. That's the complication. The question is, do we push the launch back 48 hours or use a backup data set? There's your question. I recommend the backup set to maintain the launch date. And there's your answer. Listen closely. You just moved from worker to strategist in 4 sentences. Presence is also built on decisive composure. How do you look when things go wrong? Because in business, things go wrong. Most people's heart rates spike. They talk faster and their voice goes up. They look like they're being chased by a tiger. If you want to have gravitas, you need to slow your pace, lower your volume, and slow your speech by at least 10%. Just use the commanding pause. If someone asks you a hard question, don't answer immediately. Count 2 beats. Look at them, and then speak. It's that 2-second gap that tells everyone you aren't afraid of the silence. You also have to master the silent signals. Deep thinkers have a tendency to collapse their bodies by leaning over laptops and looking at the floor and minimizing their physical footprint. Nothing about that body language says that you're a leader. But if you want to command a room, you have to take up space, not in a pushy way, but in a stewardship way. It just requires having an open frame, no crossed arms, and practice eye contact with persistence. Don't be the first to look away. High-value assets are stable and volatile assets are shaky. Be the stable asset. Now, why does this matter? Well, because of a concept referred to as the expert's paradox. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So when someone asks you a question, you give a nuanced, it depends answer. Now, to a CEO, it depends sounds like I'm not sure. You have to learn to bridge the gap between technical accuracy and executive decisiveness. You can be 100% accurate in your head, but if you project 50% certainty, the room will follow the person who's 50% accurate but 100% certain. My goal is to make you both. This is where social calibration comes in. It's your adaptive operating system. Smart analytical people often have one mode, expert. You're precise, literal, and always right. That's great at your desk, and it's terrible in the hallway. Calibration is the ability to read the unspoken frequency of a room and then adjust your dial. There are 3 dials. High power, high formal for boardrooms, low power, high warmth for team lunches, and casual authority. That's a sweet spot where you're the most knowledgeable person in the room, but you're so comfortable that you don't have to perform it. The mistake smart people make is using high formal at a happy hour or low power in a board meeting. If you can't calibrate, you're a robot, and robots are tools. They're not people and certainly not leaders. So we've established that your technical skill is the engine, but your presence is the steering wheel. Now, we have to talk about what happens when you're driving that Ferrari at 100 miles an hour and a tire blows up. This is where you need executive composure. In high-stakes environments, whether it's a courtroom, a trading floor, or a board presentation, people are subconsciously scanning you for leakage. Leakage is when your internal anxiety spills out into your external behavior. Analytical people are prone to this because you're constantly checking the calculations in your head. And when you find an error or a risk, your body reacts before your brain filters it. Now, to the outside world, this looks like weakness. It looks like you've lost control of the situation. Think about how a high-performance computer works. When the processor gets hot, the heat sink draws that energy away so the system doesn't crash. As a leader, you are the heat sink for the room. When a client yells, when the data is bad, or when a deadline's missed, everyone looks at the person with the most weight in the room. If that person, you, looks panicked, the room catches fire. The first tactical move here is the 10% rule. Under pressure, our human instinct is to accelerate. So you talk faster, you move faster, you blink more. This signals to everyone's lizard brain that there's a predator in the room. To counter this, you have to consciously slow down everything by 10%. Slow your speech, slow your pace, slow your gestures. When you slow down, you're signaling, I have enough time to solve this. That's the ultimate power move. Next is a commanding pause. Most people fear silence. They think silence means I don't know the answer. So they fill the air with ums and uhs and likes. And this is verbal clutter, and it's a tax on your authority. High status individuals use silence as a tool. If someone asks you a question that catches you off guard, don't rush to fill the void. Take those 2 beats we practiced earlier, then respond. In this instance, that 2-second gap transforms you from a reactive responder to a thoughtful strategist. It tells the room that you're not intimidated by the question or the person asking it. Now, let's move to the silent signals of your body. In your niche, law, finance, tech, so much time is spent daily just hunched over screens. This creates a physical collapse that follows you to your rooms of power. If you want to command respect, you have to own the space. This doesn't mean that you act like an alpha maniac. It means you have stewardship of the room. This is evident in your open frame. Keep your hands visible, Crossed arms are a universal signal of defensiveness or insecurity. If you're sitting at a table, keep your forearms on the table, palms slightly open. This signals transparency and confidence. Remember to practice eye contact persistence. Most socially underleveraged professionals look away far too early. They make eye contact for a second, then look at their notes or the floor. To build gravitas, you need to hold eye contact for about 70% of the time you're listening and 50% of the time you're speaking. When you break eye contact, break it to the side, never down. Then there's the weighted stance. If you're standing, plant your feet shoulder width apart and distribute your weight evenly. And don't shift from one foot to the other. Shifting weight is, once again, leakage. You recall leakage from earlier? It's nervous energy looking for an exit. If you're sitting, keep both feet on the floor. It shows that you're stable. It grounds you and keeps your posture upright without looking stiff. Think of it this way. In a portfolio, volatility is a risk. In a person, fidgeting is volatility. You want to be a low volatility asset. When you move with intent. When you speak with weighted words. This brings us to the psychology of certainty. In the technical world, you're trained to be correct. You use qualifiers like, I think it's possible, or the data suggests. While this is intellectually honest, it's socially underleveraged. Leadership isn't about being 100% correct all the time. It's more about being 100% certain of the next step. The executive says, the market's showing volatility. Our next step is to initiate this hedge. We'll reevaluate in 48 hours. You aren't claiming to be a psychic. You're claiming to be a leader. You're providing the one thing people crave more than money. That's certainty in the face of ambiguity. If you can combine this certainty with composure and the silent signals of a stable asset, you've effectively built the frame of a leader. People will stop asking you if you're the expert and start assuming you're the boss. But once you've built the frame, you have to know how to navigate the social nuances of the elite. You need to know the secret handshakes of high-end business etiquette so you don't accidentally signal that you don't belong in the room. Now that we've built the internal architecture and the physical frame, we have to talk about the environment, specifically the high-stakes social environments where the real decisions are made. This is where most socially underleveraged professionals fall apart. You can be a genius at your desk. If you don't know the unspoken rules of a power dinner or a high-level gala, you're signaling to everyone in the room that you haven't reached the top yet. High-end business etiquette isn't about which fork you use, though that matters. It's more about power dynamics and demonstrating that you're at home in an environment of influence. In your world, the dinner isn't about the food. Although the organizers and the culinary team worked exhaustively to plan it. The food is a prop, and the dinner is a test of your social stamina and your ability to build rapport without looking like you're trying. The first rule is the lead-in. Never talk business the moment you sit down. It's a common mistake because we value efficiency. And at the high end, efficiency is seen as low status, and it makes it appear like you're hungry for the deal. Leaders don't appear as being hungry, so they can spend time on the perimeter, travel, shared interest, or high-level industry trends. The second rule is host and guest dynamics. If you're the host, you're the director of the evening. You choose the wine, you signal the waiter, and most importantly, you handle the bill away from the table. High-level professionals don't do the check dance. You give your card to the maitre d' before the guest arrives. This signals that you're in control of the resources and the environment. And when you're the guest, don't spend 10 minutes debating the menu. Order something mid-range and easy to eat while talking. Your focus should be 100% on the person across from you, not on the sea bass. This leads us into social calibration. I mentioned earlier that smart people often have one mode, the expert. But to win at the high end, you need an adaptive operating system. Think of social calibration as a volume knob. The boardroom is volume 10, high authority, low warmth. Your speech is SCQA, structured, and you're the stable asset. The post-conference drinks are volume 5, mid-authority, high warmth. This is when you use the bridge technique, where you take a technical topic and you bridge it to a human story. The team setting now, that's volume 3. Low authority, ultra high warmth. This is where you ask insight-driven questions like, what was the biggest pivot you had to make this year? The socially underleveraged professional stays at volume 10 all day. They're always on, always proving themselves and always being the expert. To get to the executive level, people have to like being around you. They have to trust your brain, but they have to enjoy your company. Finally, we have to address the room, the client meeting, the conference, the cocktail party. Most analytical minds don't like these because they feel fake. But if you view it as an intelligence gathering activity, well, then it becomes a game that you can win. The secret to mingling is the entry and the exit. On the entry, look for a group of 3 or more where their physical stance is open, like a U shape rather than a closed circle. Walk up, wait a beat in the conversation, and offer a contextual observation, something like, I think we're all trying to figure out if the keynote speaker was being visionary or just optimistic. Gives the group a hook to pull you in. The value add exit allows you to depart on a high note. It was great hearing your take on X. I'm going to go say hello to Bob, but I'd love to follow up with you on the data point we discussed. You signal that you have other high value connections and you provide a clear path for future contact. Remember, in these rooms, you aren't looking for a job or a deal. You're looking to build social capital. You're placing small bets on people that'll pay off later. If you can move through a room with casual authority, being the smartest person who doesn't need to prove it, you'll find that the important people start looking for you. In the next section, we'll discuss sophisticated conversation techniques.